Two investors own the exact same thing, the same fund, the same amount. $200,000 in SCHD, the most popular dividend fund in America. And at 60 years old, one of them collects nearly $1,600 a year more than the other. Same fund, same balance, same dividend. The gap has nothing to do with the market, nothing to do with timing, and nothing to do with luck. It comes down to two boring words. Almost nobody checks before they retire: taxes and location. Here's the part that should bother you. SCHD advertises a yield, a clean, confident number you can quote to the decimal. But the yield SCHD shows you and the income you actually keep at 60 are two completely different numbers. And years ago, I watched someone I knew brag about that headline yield, right up until the moment a real slice of it walked out the door at tax time, simply because he had never once asked where his SCHD was even sitting. So today I'm going to show you three things. First, exactly what SCHD really pays you after taxes at every bracket, down to the dollar. Second, how the same SCHD position can hand you two completely different paychecks depending on the account it lives in. And third, near the end, the placement move that can turn SCHD into a paycheck the government barely touches at 60. That last one is the part most people get backwards for 30 years, and fixing it doesn't cost you a single share. Quick disclaimer. I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't financial advice. Everything here is for educational purposes. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results, and always do your own research before making any move with your money. Now, here's the one fact about SCHD that makes this entire conversation possible. Its dividends are mostly qualified. That single word, qualified, is doing an enormous amount of quiet work. Qualified dividends aren't taxed like the income from your job, and they aren't taxed like the interest from a savings account either. They ride the long-term capital gains schedule instead, which means the rate on them can be 0%, 15%, or 20%, depending entirely on you. Ordinary income, the kind a regular paycheck or a traditional retirement withdrawal generates, can climb far higher than that. So, the fact that SCHD pays mostly qualified dividends is the whole reason it even belongs in a serious tax conversation. And while everyone else is staring at SCHD's gross yield of around 3.25%, the number that actually matters is something I call your keep rate. Your keep rate is simple. It's the share of every dividend dollar that actually survives the trip into your bank account. A gross yield is what the fund announces. A keep rate is what you live on. And three levers control that keep rate: your bracket, your account, and your state. Most people never touch a single one of them, which is exactly why two investors with identical SCHD positions end up with two very different incomes. Let's walk through all three, one lever at a time. Start with the bracket, because it's the lever hiding in plain sight. Picture an investor we'll call Harry. He's 60, married, filing jointly, and he holds $200,000 in SCHD inside a regular taxable brokerage account. At roughly 3.25%, that position throws off about $6,500 a year in qualified dividends. That's the gross number, the one that looks great on a spreadsheet. Now watch what the keep rate does to it. If his total taxable income stays inside the 0% qualified bracket, which in 2026 runs up to about $98,900 for a couple, he pays nothing on those dividends. Zero. He keeps the full $6,500. A keep rate of 100%. Bump him into the 15% bracket, and the math shifts. Now he hands over about $975 and keeps $5,525, 85 cents on every dollar. Still good, but that's nearly $1,000 a year quietly evaporating that he may never have budgeted for. Now push him all the way to the top. The 20% qualified rate, plus an extra 3.8% investment income tax that kicks in once a couple crosses $250,000 of income. Stack those together and the keep rate slips to about 76 cents on the dollar. On that same $6,500, he nets $4,953. So between the best case and the worst case, on the exact same SCHD position, the income could swing by more than $1,500 a year. Same fund, same balance. The only thing that changed is the bracket he allowed himself to land in. That 3.8% surcharge, by the way, is the piece almost nobody sees coming. because it isn't part of the headline rate. It just shows up. And there's a second sneakier cost hiding behind that same bracket, one that catches a lot of 60-year-olds completely off guard. Your SCHD dividends don't just get taxed on their own. They also count toward what's known as your combined income, the number that decides how much of your Social Security check itself becomes taxable. Cross certain thresholds, and suddenly up to 85% of your Social Security benefit can be pulled into the tax base right alongside the dividends. So a stack of SCHD dividends sitting in the wrong account can quietly trigger a tax on income you assumed was already settled. It's a compounding effect, where the dividend gets taxed once, and then it reaches over and taxes your benefit check as well. That is exactly why where you hold SCHD can end up mattering even more than how much of it you actually own. But the bracket is only the first lever, and honestly, it isn't even the one with the biggest long-term cost. The second lever is the account itself, and this is where being 60 changes absolutely everything. Take that same $6,500 dividend and drop it into two different accounts. In a taxable brokerage account, at the 15% bracket, the investor could potentially net about $5,525 a year. Move the identical position into a Roth, and the tax on those dividends falls to nothing, because qualified Roth withdrawals after age 59.5 are completely tax-free. In year one alone, that's a difference of nearly $1,000. But it doesn't stop in year one. Stretch it across 10 years, with SCHD's payout historically growing a few percent annually, and the Roth investor could potentially come out somewhere around $11,500 ahead. And if he happened to live in a high-tax state like California, where the state can take another 13% and change right on top, that gap could potentially widen to more than $18,000 over the same decade. That's real money, and not one share of SCHD was bought or sold to create it. Now here's the trap inside this lever, and it's a quiet one. The natural instinct is to say, fine, I'll just stuff everything into a traditional IRA and defer all of it. But for dividend income, a traditional IRA is often the worst seat in the house. Yes, the dividends grow without an annual tax bill, but every single dollar that eventually comes out is taxed as ordinary income at your regular rate, which can run anywhere from 10% to 37%. That can be far higher than the qualified rate those same SCHD dividends would have enjoyed sitting in a plain taxable account. You take a fund that was tax-advantaged by design and strip the advantage right off it. That's the part most people get exactly backwards, and they do it for years without ever realizing it. The third lever is the one you can sometimes move with your feet. In a state with no income tax, like Florida, Texas, or Nevada, SCHD's dividends face no state bite at all. So even a top bracket retiree still holds on to around 76 cents on the dollar. In California's top bracket, that same dividend dollar can fall to roughly 63 cents. In New York, around 65. It's the identical dividend from the identical fund in the identical retirement. Just a different zip code quietly editing the keep rate by more than 10 cents on every dollar. Now, I'm not telling you to pack a moving truck. I'm telling you the lever exists, that it can be worth thousands a year at a large position size, and that almost nobody bothers to count it when they imagine their retirement income. So here's the move that ties all three levers together, and this is the one I would circle in red ink if I were 60. It isn't about chasing a higher yield somewhere else. It's about engineering your own income so that SCHD pays you, and the government barely shows up to the table at all. Remember that 0% qualified bracket, the one that runs up to about $98,900 for a couple. As long as your total taxable income stays under that ceiling, your qualified SCHD dividends are taxed at zero, not deferred, not merely reduced, zero. So the real question quietly stops being how much SCHD do I need, and becomes how much SCHD income can I actually take completely tax-free. Run the math backwards, and it gets clear fast. To pull about $15,000 a year in dividends at SCHD's current yield, an investor would need roughly $461,000 in the fund. Want about $30,000 a year? That's around $923,000. Want a full $50,000 a year? You'd be looking at roughly $1.5 million in SCHD. Now picture Harry sitting on that first rung with about $461,000. His SCHD generates close to $15,000 a year. Add in some Social Security, and his total taxable income still lands comfortably under that 0% ceiling. The federal tax on his dividends? Nothing. He keeps every single cent of it. And 60 is just about the perfect age to actually run this, because of a window most people don't even realize they're standing inside. At 59.5, the early withdrawal penalty disappears, but required minimum distributions, the forced withdrawals that can shove your income higher, don't begin until 73. That's a 13-year stretch where a retiree can quietly pull just enough from a traditional IRA to fill up the low brackets, let the qualified SCHD dividends ride at zero, and leave the Roth completely untouched to keep compounding in the background. There's even a hidden bonus tucked inside this. Roth withdrawals don't count toward the combined income formula that decides how much of your Social Security check gets taxed, so a Roth-heavy retiree can often protect more of that benefit too. That is the placement move. Notice the yield never changed at all. The keep rate did all the work. Now you might be wondering whether some other fund quietly dodges all of this. It really doesn't. Something like VYM, Vanguard's high-yield fund, pays mostly qualified dividends too and overlaps heavily with SCHD, so the very same keep rate rules apply to it. It's a perfectly valid choice on its own. Just know the overlap before you decide to own both of them side by side. SCHD's international cousin, SCHY, adds some global dividend exposure and can be tax efficient in its own right, but none of them rewrite the three levers. The keep rate follows you, the investor, not the ticker on the screen. So let's bring it all the way home. SCHD doesn't really pay you a yield. It pays you a keep rate. And that keep rate is decided long before any dividend ever touches your account, by the bracket you land in, the account you choose, and the state you call home. The investor who keeps the full $6,500 and the one who keeps $4,900 didn't pick different funds. They simply made different decisions around the very same fund. At 60, with that 13-year window open right in front of you,